I was elected in 2020, youngest person, first African-American elected to the role. And one thing nobody tells you is that when you're the first to something, you got to work really, really hard. Otherwise, it might not be a second. A lot of times people get into politics for different reasons. I got into it because I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people. I was talking with a cousin. His argument is always, Democrats and Republicans are the exact same. Y'all be talking about stuff that I don't care about. Whenever I talk to like young black dudes, they're always like, yo, it's people talking to me who don't look like me, who don't come from my background, and they're talking to me about stuff I don't care about. If you look at Congress right now, it's not a bunch of young black dudes in Congress. To be able to win over demographics, we have to understand that being a big tent means that you have to have people from the different communities in the tent.
You sued the Trump administration and won. You seem to be the trend of the new Democratic Party, which is younger leaders who are innovative. And from your perspective, how does it need to change to be competitive?
The way I think about it every single day, first thing is we got to play better offense and stop playing defense so much.
All right, y'all, welcome to another episode of the Blueprint Podcast. Y'all, we have an exciting guest today, and this guest is so good. I'm going to read their intro because I do not want to mess this up. We got a really special guest, and I'm excited for you guys to hear this episode. So today, we are going to be interviewing the youngest Black Harris County attorney. Since 2020, he's been fighting and winning for voting rights, making corporations clean up pollution in Black and brown neighborhoods in Houston, holding businesses accountable for price gouging during hurricanes and natural disasters. And he's been leading a national fight against the Trump administration and its efforts to cut funding for life-saving medical research and denying birthright citizenship for immigrant families. Today's guest is Christian Menefee, and he is running for Congress in District 8 in Harris County. And if you don't know that, that's the seat of Sheila Jackson Lee and the late Sylvester Turner. So y'all, please welcome Christian Menefee to the Blueprint Podcast.
Appreciate it, man. Super excited to be on. Harris County attorney, running for Congress in the 18th Congressional District, and excited to be here, man.
Absolutely. So you got quite a resume. So did I miss anything important there? I wanted to make sure I got the highlights.
Man, I'll tell you, I hate having my bio read, man. It is so uncomfortable. You got like a long bio, a short bio. I just like when I'm about to give a speech or something and they're like, introduce me, I'm like, yo, you gotta just be like, hey y'all, we got Christian Menefee, he's coming to the stage. You know what I'm saying? So.
I love that, man. So I knew a little bit about you. I've been following you on social media for about a year or two. And then I got invited. Shout out to Kim Dixon. Kim invited me to your birthday party, but it was also a fundraiser for your campaign. And I was so inspired by your story that I was like, man, I got to have this guy on. And the cool thing was when I went up to talk to you afterward, I wasn't even thinking about the podcast. I was like, yo, I just want to go shake this man's hand and thank him for what he's doing. And brought up that I had a podcast and you were excited to come on. And so I was thankful that you even like thought of it and like, hey, I want to come on your podcast. So I was like, man, I appreciate that. But the thing I love about you is that I can see myself in you, right? And so I just turned 30, you're 37. And I was like, wow, like, I wanted to be an attorney at one point in my life. And I was like, if I would have followed like that path, I could have been you. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's so inspiring to me. Not to say that, not to diminish what you've done at any way, but also to say like, okay, that can be done, right? So somebody who looks like me can achieve what you have achieved. So I just want to start off with that.
Yeah, look, man, first of all, you're going to achieve way more than I have, man. But being in this role, man, it's been interesting, right? So I was elected in 2020. Youngest person, first African-American elected to the role. And one thing nobody tells you is that when you're the first to something, you got to work really, really hard. Otherwise, it might not be a second. You know what I'm saying? That's like one of the things that kind of, comes to mind early on when you get into the gig. But I'll never forget, man, this was maybe 2022 or 2023. We were coming up on Black History Month. And I go online and I'm like tagged to a picture. I'm like, oh, what is this? And it's like an elementary school kid. He's like second or third grade or something, right? And dude was me for Black History Month, right? Because the teacher had like told them, hey, you got to pick somebody who's like, is a first something or invented something or was legendary and their contributions to Black history. And he was me. He had like, a little blazer joint on, some jeans. He was like, I'm Christian Menefee. I was like, dude, if that didn't make me feel pressure, like if that didn't really make me think like there's always somebody watching you, looking up to you, you just got to work hard and kind of run your race. But yeah, man, it's been an honor to serve in this capacity, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into some more of your background, but the thing that's kind of caught my attention is that, you sued the Trump administration and won. And so I kind of want to start there because I'm like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? That's definitely a big feat. And I feel like the funding cuts, and there's been a lot of instability and a lot of confusion and uncertainty. And so the fact that you've been successful in fighting for your community, I think, is really amazing. So talk about the case. How did you win? What did you learn? Kind of break it down for us.
Yeah, so I think as a starting point, the Trump administration is wild, right? You think about the history of this country, and obviously we've had presidents from both parties, and there have been people who I disagree with politically who have been president, right? Yeah. And that's from both parties, right? Who have made decisions that I disagree with. But you get a guy like Donald Trump into the White House, and this is somebody who has been a failed businessman, a reality TV star, just overall known for things that most people aren't proud of, and he becomes president of the United States, and just immediately starts taking steps to degrade our norms, to kind of strip away people's protections. And so one of the lawsuits we filed against him was there was this health screening program in Harris County. After World War II, you saw a lot of people having to move to various countries, right? Because they were in war-torn areas, right? And so we got a large number of folks who came in under refugee status to the United States. Now, when that happened, one of the things that we started doing, and folks are doing across the country, is doing these health screenings, right? Because let's say that there's a disease that ain't popping over here, but it's popping somewhere else, and they bring it over here, and it can cause all kind of issues, right? Yeah. So health screening program been going on for decades across the country. We've been doing it here in Harris County since just after World War II. So this stuff has been going on for 70, 80 years. The Trump administration, just with the stroke of a pen, cut the funding to the program, right? No real explanation. We asked them about it. They just didn't return phone calls and emails. And this had the ability to freeze up $10 million. So we sued them. And this is the thing I love about engaging with the Trump administration is it's like a cartoon sometimes, right? Yeah. We sue them. We get them before the judge, and they're basically like, "Oh yeah, we messed that up." What? Right? They're like, "Yeah, no, we didn't handle that the right way." Actually, upon further investigation, we've now decided that we're going to do a 180 on this, and they restored the funding. They removed the block. So it was like as clean of a win as you're ever going to get when you sue a presidential administration. But I think kind of the lesson learned here is the Trump administration is both diabolical and has no clue what it's doing at the exact same time, right? Diabolical in the sense that they roll out more than 150 executive orders, and the plan is to overwhelm the media, the citizenry, right? Like really make people not be able to comprehend what's going on. Right. But then at the same time, they're so incompetent that, you file a lawsuit and they're like, oh yeah, we messed that up. Yeah. So, we have engaged with them numerous times, and I've found that they're both the evil character on the cartoon and have no clue what they're doing. Yeah.
So it sounds like with this kind of administration, with this kind of president, this leader, these are kind of people that you have to fight back against, right? So it's kind of like you think about the bully on the playground. Yeah. Like you got to stand up to the bully to have any chance of beating it, right? But if you can't stand up to it, then you have no chance. So I think that's who you, the figurehead that you are for Harris County and District 18, and just in this political race, is you're one of the people that's willing to actually fight back. And so, talk about what else you learned from that experience, from suing the Trump administration, being the Harris County attorney. Like, what are some of the things that you learned about just kind of politics, the legal process that maybe the average person wouldn't know or understand?
Yeah, you got to be bold, man. You got to be courageous. A lot of times people get into politics for different reasons. People might get into it for notoriety, for fame. They might get into politics because they need something to do. They want a good job. There's all kind of reasons people get into it. I got into it because I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people, right? And the way I think about every single day while I'm in public service is if there's a group of people that I need to protect, then you got to step up and do it. And you framed it perfectly. Standing up to bullies is exactly the way to frame it, right? Donald Trump is the guy who would come into the classroom, and when the teacher looked away, he would slap your books off your desk, right? And then the teacher looked back, he would snitch on somebody else. They're the ones who did it, right? And he very much believes in taking advantage of marginalized communities, right? You're never gonna see him beef with billionaires. That's not the way that he rolls. You're never gonna see him get into real confrontation with people who he views as peers, but instead you'll see him go after immigrants. You'll see him go after refugees. You'll see him go heavy after black folk, right? And call say DEI, but we all know it's coded for oh, that must have been a black pilot, right? Yeah. So what I've learned from this experience is you got to stand up to them, man. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not just elected officials, it's not just lawyers, it's like people across communities. I mean, you think back to the civil rights movement, right? It was like a coalition of folks. You had the Thurgood Marshalls of the world, but it wasn't just them. You had the John Lewises of the world. You had people in the streets, in the courtrooms, and there's a role for every single person to play. And what I've been most encouraged by over, the past 6 or 7 months is just how, like, average people who are not involved in politics have been standing up, have been fighting back. And I think that's how you protect the democracy, man, because what we're seeing from this president is like dangerous and it's atypical, right? You didn't see, LBJ taking advantage of democratic norms like this, right? You didn't see Gerald Ford taking advantage of like our expectations for how society is supposed to conduct itself. You didn't see H.W. Bush doing that. But Donald Trump is different, and it's why people have to get engaged and get in the game.
Gotcha. And so I kind of read in your bio, so you decided to go into political office in 2016 after the first election, correct? Or was that, 2016? That was I guess when you ran for attorney of Harris County, right?
So I ran in 2020, but, the short version of the story goes like this. I was working in the private sector, and really, like, my story starts back, like, with my parents and their upbringing. So my mom she started off life in the east side of San Antonio in the projects, right? And she had 9 or 10 siblings, just a huge family, and they were in and out of foster care, in and out of CPS. So they ended up moving to South Central LA, right? And this was like right around the time where gang culture was getting popping, and life was just not better for them there. So my mom left South Central and joined the military because she said it would give her a hot dinner and a warm bed, right? My dad, his family's from Fifth Ward here in Houston. He joined the military as well. They met. They didn't have anybody in their family who went to college, who graduated college. So fast forward throughout my childhood, it was kind of instilled in me that, like, hey, man, when the time is right, like, you're going to need to go to college and try to do better in your life. But also, you should never forget public service and the importance of, like, what government can do for people. So, when we were young, we were on WIC, the Women, Infant, and Children program. When I went to school, I had free lunch, right? When my brother was battling cancer at MD Anderson, it was my parents' government insurance that helped him beat cancer because he was able to get a bone marrow transplant. When my parents bought their home, they would have never been able to buy a house, but because they were both veterans, they had down payment assistance and only paid $500 down payment on the house. When I went to college, I went on a Pell Grant. When I went to law school, I went on a post 9/11 GI Bill. So, like, take government out of that mix, right? My life's completely different, right? I end up in a totally different situation if you take God, if you take government out of that mix. So I go to law school, I come back, I'm working at a law firm, I'm doing all right, I'm making money. And in 2016, Donald Trump won the Republican primary. And I said, hold on, right? Hold on. Whoa, America is kind of, this is kind of wild right now. Hold on. I need to get more involved. So I started going to stuff, get more involved. And then ultimately that led me to run for office in 2020. And I ran against a gentleman who had been elected office on and off for 20 years, very well known. And I was a first time candidate, man. I was just, at the time, 2020, I was, 32, so super young. Ran and just like huge upset. Nobody expected me to win, and we won election night. 3 people in the race, and in Texas, you got to get at least 50% of the vote to win. Otherwise, you go to a runoff, and we won without a runoff election night, man.
Okay.
So it was 2020 catapulted me into politics, but the single greatest influence on my decision to get involved in politics was Donald Trump, hands down.
So what's your political strategy to winning? Because, like, you're a winner, man. I mean, like, you're winning the lawsuits, you winning the elections. Talk me through what's your strategy. Like, what is it that you're doing, right? I want to know the details. How do you, if I wanted to be you, and we're switching roles, like, what would I need to do to win?
Yeah, I would say just be real, man. Like it would be being you, right? So many people get into politics and they create a different version of themselves, right? They start selling a product, right? It becomes like an actor playing a role. That's one part of it. And then the other part of it is a lot of times people in politics come from a certain type of background, right? Like their parents were attorneys or doctors, or they came from a household that made a bunch of money, right? They went to the best of private schools, blah, blah, blah. And that just wasn't my background, like I just came from a different type of upbringing, and I just brought all of myself to politics, right? So when I ran for office, I had no problem going to like a barbershop and I could rap with anybody in there because that is what I grew up in, right?
Okay.
Like if I'm talking to like young black dudes, I can communicate with them. If I was talking to, like a white woman, I could communicate with them. I just brought the full version of myself. And, like, so a good example is like, I'll never forget, man, when I was at one of my law firms, anytime we would go to karaoke with the group, right? And these law firms are predominantly white.
Yeah.
At one point in time, the first firm I was at, it's thousands of lawyers at the firm. I was the only black litigation associate, so lawsuits associate in the entire country. We would go to these karaoke events, and there was one song that made everybody go crazy every single time. Sweet Caroline.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, when I tell you I had never heard that song before when I got to the law firm, I didn't know anything about that. Was not my upbringing, right?
Yeah.
And I did not hide the fact that I was just different, that my culture was different, that the way that I moved was different, and that's okay, right? And I think when you come to politics and you bring that authenticity to it, especially for black folks and who are not, feel like they look at world leaders, politicians, whatever, and don't see a lot of themselves, it connects with people. There's a reason why Jasmine Crockett is popping the way that she's popping. In addition to her just being like super dope and a fantastic speaker and a highly intelligent mind, she presents authenticity. And like people, especially black folks, gravitate to that, right? My dad can't tell you nothing about politics, but he like, ooh, Jasmine Crockett be messing them up, He knows that.
Yeah.
And that, I think the key to my success thus far in politics has just been being authentic, man.
So in terms of the X's and O's, is it as simple as just showing up and kissing babies, being real, and you're just gonna get elected, or tell me about the what are the strategists telling you? I mean, from whatever you can say, is that like, hey, we got to spend this money on ads? I mean, that's kind of how I think about the the presidential elections. Like whoever can spend the most money on ads wins, right? Like I don't know if that's actually what it is. That's kind of my perception.
No, so at different levels of politics, the strategy is different, right? But yeah, it's a great follow-up question because I definitely gave you the podcast answer, right? No, so politics, running for office there's an art component and there's a science component, right? The science component is just like straight up data, right? You have to go out and touch voters. They have to learn about you and your name before they get to the polls. And there's a number of ways to do that. You can show up at their front door, knock on their door. You can send them an email. You can send them a text message. You can put out an advertisement on social media and they see it, right? You can put an advertisement on TV and they see it. You can put one on the radio and they hear it, right? There's all these different ways. You can send a mail piece to their mailbox and they get it and they say, oh, look at that. So that's part of the science of it, right? Okay. And you're just like trying to determine what your coalition is, right? Am I trying to target black folks, Latinos, AAPI, LGBTQ, older people, young people? Who am I trying to target? Who's gonna like what I'm selling the most? Right. So that's the science of it. The art of it is you're selling a product, right? This is sales. Yeah. And so in the same way that you would bring out a car, right? Doesn't matter if it's a Honda, if it's a Toyota, if it's a Cadillac, if it's a Lexus, you got to sell it. Yeah. And you can sell it many different ways. You can sell it with the gadgets that are on the car. You can tell it. You can sell it with it was recently cleaned and it looks real nice on the outside, the interior, or you just might be a cold salesman, right? Yeah. And you're just able to kind of finesse, right? There is a science component and an art component. I think my strength has been the authenticity piece of it. Just means I don't have to be as performative with the sales, right? I can just be who I am. Yeah. And that gets the job done. But now that I'm running for a different office, and even when I was running for re-election as county attorney, I was really just selling the gadgets on the car. What I was saying is like, look at all this stuff that we've accomplished in my first term as Harris County attorney, right? We have gone after Greg Abbott over voting rights. We've gone after large corporations over hyper-concentrating concrete batch plants in only black and brown neighborhoods, right? I've gone across the county and talked to seniors about estate planning because study after study shows that nearly 70% of black folks die without a will, right? I started a summer legal academy where I bring in kids from across the county and teach them about applying to law school, right? Yeah. And so like we've gotten all this stuff done. And so, when I was running for re-election, it was really just selling like, yo, look at what we've done, right? Yeah. But that's really what it is, man. But I left out the most important part, which is in order to do all this stuff, you got to raise money. Yeah. Because the advertisements cost money. And in an average like congressional campaign, people are spending $1 to $2 million. Yeah. $1 to $2 million, right, to advertise themselves to people, and that's because the population of people who could vote is roughly like 700,000 to 800,000 people. It's typically much lower than that does vote, but like that's typically what you're spending. So At the end of the day, whoever has the best coalition, raises the money so that they can advertise themselves, has the best product to sell, and does the best job at selling.
And is
will,
the coalition?
Will win the campaign.
What do you mean? Who's the coalition? Is that like your team or? Like
no, so the coalition is like the people who you're trying to sell your product to, right? So like let's say if it was a dealership. Are you setting up in River Oaks? Like, where?
Oh,
where
so like your voting base. Like, who's voting base is going to actually show up for them? And
exactly.
Like,
exactly. Who are you marketing yourself to? Who's going to be most inclined to want to support you? So, for example, I'm not going to be pushing myself that heavy to like old conservative white dudes. They're probably not going to be rocking with me, right? Yeah. But there are other demographics that might be more likely to.
Okay, got you. So I was watching a podcast the other day, and Bernie Sanders was on it, and I forget the name of the podcast. It was like this comedian guy, and he was talking about like how some candidates take like his super PAC money, right? So these big corporations that get behind candidates so that they'll essentially they buy a candidate, right? It's going to do what they want, right?
Right.
And he was essentially talking about how, there's a lot of that in Congress, right? Where there's people who kind of like are beholden to the people who got him elected because they wrote $2 million checks, $3 million checks for them. And he said essentially you can't piss those people off, right? Because they got you elected. So I guess how do you run a campaign when you need millions of dollars, right? And, the option is, have you been approached by, super PACs? Does that exist in Harris County? And like, if so, how do you balance that when you need those big dollars, but also you don't want to be bought, right? How have you navigated that?
Yeah, so big money in politics is just like a wildly corrupt game. Okay. That should not exist. This really all, like, I guess the pinnacle of all this was a case, Citizens United, which is in the United States Supreme Court, which basically said that corporations are people when it comes to spending soft dollars, and therefore they should be able to spend as much as they want to. Now, hard dollars, hard campaign dollars is like you're running for office, I'm giving you a campaign contribution. That's hard dollars. For that, there's a limit. People can only give $3,500 is the limit now per race, right? And the reason those limits are in place was to curb that type of undue influence over candidates, right? Soft money is I really want you to win, but instead of giving you this money, I'm about to go just spend it telling people to vote for you. But I'm not going to work with you. We're not going to coordinate because that's illegal. Yeah. I'm just going to spend $20 million of my dollars to go tell people to vote for you, right? Yeah. Which, of course, is like the same thing as giving you the money. And in some instances, it's even better because I might know what I'm doing better than you do. Yeah. And so it like corrupts, man. So now you have all these large, you got super PACs, you got corporate PACs, the whole nine, that are like now in the market. And, you asked the question, like, does it exist in Harris County? These congressional races, these are national races, right? So, like, everybody in D.C. already knows who's running in the Ohio 3rd or the Texas 18th or whatever it may be, right? So, yeah, it's absolutely, like, knee-deep in it. I have not taken a single dollar from a corporate PAC. I'm very much trying to run this race based on, like, the people. Yeah. In our last reporting period, we raised almost $400,000. The average donation was $50 a person. Wow. So we had more than 8,000 donors to the campaign, and these are folks across demographics, socioeconomic conditions, whatever it may be. But no, better believe, like they are deeply engaged across the country, and they're looking to buy candidates, and but that. The way I think about it, though, is that like this is a Democratic safe seat, D plus 40. Typically, it's 70% Democratic, 30% Republican. So, once you get in, it's going to be really, really hard to get you out, and you can be yourself. And that's what you saw with the Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. It's like she wasn't beholden to anybody. She was like, you're going to put $1 million against me? Good luck, right? Yeah. Like, who's going to beat Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee? Yeah. And so the way I'm thinking about it is very much because of the demographics and the makeup of the district, when you get in Congress, you should not have to be beholden to those types of interests in the way that like a 50-50 district might be. Okay. Because somebody could come put some money in the race and they could boot you out of Congress.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I think about, and this might be controversial. I almost don't like that it would be easy to get in and not get someone out, right? Yeah. Where Sheila Jackson Lee was in her seat for so long, sometimes you wonder, like, okay, well, does somebody still have that same drive? You know what I mean? If they were up for re-election, in the next time. So I don't know. What are some of your thoughts? I feel like I'm seeing that play out generationally, where we're seeing an older generation not necessarily pass the baton very well, right? Especially to like young black men. Like very rarely do I see, like, do I have the opportunity to see like the baton get passed and someone's intentionally like, hey, let's raise up the next generation. Typically, it's like, hold on to what you got, kiss the hand. You know what I mean? You got to work your way up. Which some of that's just human nature, like just who we are as humans. That's necessarily like, that's not a black thing, right? It's just kind of like that is what humans do. But I kind of wonder, like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think somebody should be able to just get in and just stay there for 20, 30 years?
No, so I'll start with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is probably the hardest working member of Congress, man.
Yeah.
I mean, she would call me at like midnight and be like, Mr. County Attorney, I need you to make this call to the FEMA Regional Administrator. I'm like, it is midnight. I am asleep. I'm going to continue to sleep. And this was as recent as like, 2 years ago. So, she remained one of the most hardworking members of Congress all the way up until she passed. And, incredibly sad and just really showed a legacy of hard work and service all the way through. I definitely believe that there is a problem with the passing of the baton and like building the bench, I think is the best way to think about it. And so my approach was always, I just didn't ask for permission. When I ran for county attorney, I didn't have not a single elected official endorsement. I ran against a long-term incumbent. I did not announce a single elected official endorsement. I went and raised my own money. I went and did my own thing. And so that way, when I got elected, I was like, I got here on my own. I can say that. On my own with a great team, a great support system. But I think you're completely right, is that you don't see that. I think that things are starting to change a little bit. Generationally, specifically, like my generation, we are like pretty tight, right? Like there are some fantastic servant leaders out there, Tiffany Thomas, Chris Hollins, whoever it may be. These are folks who do incredible work, who I've supported in the past, and like we have generally supported each other in the past. Like when Tiffany was running for city council out in District F, so encompasses parts of A-Leave, like I was out there like knocking doors with her, you know, in 2019. When Judge Hidalgo ran for office and called me like in early 2018 and was like, can I have a campaign contribution? I was like, yes, right? When Chris Hollins ran for city controller, I was there with him every single step of the way. There are like, good folks out there who are working hard, who I've been happy to support. But I also think that part of this is just like how the maps are drawn. We have like grossly gerrymandered maps, right? That make it so that there aren't very many seats that are competitive across parties or competitive across like races, like ethnicity, right? You have like, this is the black seat, this is the Latino seat, this is the white seat, right?
Which is interesting because your district is like, I think if I saw the stats, like maybe 50% Hispanic, maybe?
Yeah, so it was redone in the last redistricting process. So they cut out a bunch of black neighborhoods. But no, it's an incredibly diverse district. So one of the things that was valuable for me was when I got elected countywide, right? This is countywide. Like I didn't get elected in a black district, in a brown district. I got elected countywide. So when I came into office, I was able to just kind of see the entire forest. Like I am going to represent everybody who I was elected to serve, and I built a bunch of relationships in many different communities. I've done a ton of work with Latino communities across Harris County, a ton of work with underserved black communities, a ton of work in other spaces with our immigrant communities and with our working class, organized labor folks, whatever it may be. But if you come into a situation where you were first elected into a gerrymander seat and that's kind of where it stays, you end up having like a specific constituency for the entire time. But again, that's like by design, man. Like those types of like maps being drawn, it was beneficial initially for sure because
you actually get work done.
And also like where else were black folks gonna get elected to? In 1974, right? Like you had a whole host of people who would never want to elect a black person to anything. But what you've seen happen though is that like there are seats that become this is the that seat, right? This is the that seat,
which goes into
and black folks end up being the losers in that.
Yeah, which I think like is interesting because when I look at where the Democratic Party is, and you look at like kind of the identity politics that like I think almost lost them the elections to some degree at presidential. I don't know. There's a lot of debates on that, right? But it seems like that's kind of a point of I don't know, people challenging the party on that. And so in terms of like, hey, what does the party stand for, right? Like what are the who is the constituency, who is the coalition, who should we be talking to, right? Are we missing people? Is the messaging not hitting? So those are things that I've been kind of hearing we talk about. So the thing I have noticed though is that you seem to be the trend of the new Democratic Party, which is younger leaders who are innovative, and I want to see more of that. Yeah. But like from your perspective, what do you think what is the new Democratic Party, or how does it need to change to be competitive on the presidential scale, but then all the way down to the local elections, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things that you think need to happen to make the party more competitive?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we got to play better offense and stop playing defense so much.
Yeah.
Republicans have been very effective over the past few years at making Democratic officials talk about issues that they know are way more popular with their base than with our base, right? So making us talk about issues that are going to be like broad scale, unpopular. And a large part of it is because we haven't been in the driver's seat on the issues. I was talking with a cousin back before the last election, and I was trying to convince him to vote for the Democratic nominee. And he was like, I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but I might just not vote, right? He's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling Donald Trump, but like his argument is always Democrats and Republicans are the exact same to me. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's wild. Let me give you all these reasons why that's wild. But he like deeply believed it, right? And his main argument was, y'all be talking about stuff that I don't care about. And what I've learned on the campaign trail, what I've seen in my past 4 years in elected office is that most people want a few things. They want to make enough money to provide for their family. They want to make enough money to have some like in the bank if something crazy happens with their health. They want to make enough money to put their kids in a better situation than they were in. They want to make enough money to have a little bit of money left over to put in savings. They want enough money to have some fun at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's most people, right? Like if you were to ask them their top 3 issues, most people are talking about those things, right? And what he would say is like, yo, y'all are just talking about all these things that I just don't care about, and they're never going to come across my desk.
Yeah.
And like, the Republican Party, they're saying the wrong things, but at least they're talking about the things that I care about. So anyway, long story short, I was not able to convince him to vote. He did not vote in the election. And then fast forward, in like February, he hit me up and was like, yo, I will do anything I can to make sure that Donald Trump and the people who are like him are never in office again, because he's seen how much damage that Donald Trump has done. But I think, moving forward, the new strategy has to be talking about the things like the kitchen table issues that are important to people, meeting people where they are. And I think we've learned a lot that like a lot of people are, they're listening to podcasts, they're getting their news from podcasts, they're getting their news on social media, right? So kind of meeting them where they are. And then also like having effective messengers to talk to people, certain demographics of people. So here's the thing I always say. Whenever I talk to like young black dudes, they're always like, yo, it's people talking to me who don't look like me, who don't come from my background, so can't understand like culturally where I'm coming from. And they're talking to me about stuff I don't care about, right? And I think that's like a big problem, right? If you look at Congress right now, it's not a bunch of young black dudes in Congress. In fact, most people can't name a single young black dude in Congress, right? And so, I think to be able to win over demographics, we have to understand that like being a big tent means that you have to have people from the different communities in the tent. And so I think
that gives me hope, because sales and marketing can be fixed. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the kind of issue where it's not like there's nothing we can do, right? This is about like how do you package the messaging?
Right.
Like we talked about, what is the product?
Right.
Now, what I've learned from sales and marketing is that to be efficient, sometimes you have to have the same product, but just make it look different. You got to customize it, right? So it's got to feel like, oh, I'm getting something customized and unique. Really, you're just getting the same thing, right? And so, sometimes that's like, what do you have to do to sometimes to get things across the table? And so I'm just like, I just wonder if like you said, is it packaging the product differently, right? And packaging the product differently is, like you said, actually picking the right representatives.
What's so crazy is that the product that we're selling is so far superior to the product that Donald Trump and the current Republican Party are selling. Like, it's nuts. I mean, they're, cutting SNAP food benefits, right? Like, everybody knows somebody who had like an EBT card, right? Like, come on. They're cutting Pell Grants, which sent people to me like people like me to college. It makes no sense, right? They're cutting program after program, and then on top of that, you have, people either in the presidency or people with adjacency to it who just, like when they had the initial crash that happened in Washington, D.C., and they're like, oh, we think one of the pilots was a DEI hire. Like, black folks are not stupid. They know that you're talking about us. They know that you're trying to suggest that, like, we are intellectually inferior, all of these things. The product that the Democratic Party is selling is so far superior. I think you're entirely right. It's just how you're packaging it, right? It really is like,
So what is the product? Like,
So look, to me, the product is we are the only party that supports giving every single person a fair shot at the American dream, regardless of where you come from, what you look like, right? Like how your parents' situation was, whether you had addiction in your home, abuse, whatever it is. We believe in giving everybody a fair shot at the American dream. You got a small business? We believe in micro grants that pour into your small business so you can have the opportunity to make it big in this country. You want to go and get a professional degree? We believe in making college more affordable, right, and making professional programs more affordable so that you're not going into $250,000 in debt to get, a legal job paying $50,000 a year. You want to go to college? We believe in making sure that you have a Pell Grant that's going to help you do that. You want to buy a home? We believe in down payment assistance that's going to help you do that. We are the party that believes in giving everybody a fair shot. The Republican Party, the modern version of it, is like really just a fair shot for people who either already have wealth, right, or who didn't have some of the historical tragedies committed against them like black folks did. When I was in law school, the way I try to conceptualize is I was going toe to toe with people academically, right, whose great grandparents owned slaves, right? Like my family didn't get a college graduate until me in the year 2010, right? Yeah. My grandfather has a poll tax receipt, right, from when he couldn't even vote unless he were paid a certain amount. And even then, he would still be threatened and have to deal with all kind of stuff, right? Wow. My other grandfather worked on the docks in the Port of Houston, right, because that was the only way that he could make ends meet. And he ended up dying in an on-the-job accident on the docks when my dad was just fresh out of high school. I am in the party that believes that even a kid like me should have a fair shot at becoming the youngest and first African-American elected Harris County attorney. The other party, what they push is, if you make a mistake, you should never be able to get a job anymore. If you make a mistake and you get caught up in the criminal justice system, you should be barred from trying to get fair employment like everybody else. What they believe is the market will solve each and every condition, right? The market's never going to adjust for 200 years of de jure and de facto racism, all these things. But you know what? Let's let the market solve it, right? Yeah. In the name of balancing the budget, right, we should strip all these people of having an opportunity to go to college, right? Yeah. We should let the market.
What do you think about the budget?
What was that?
What do you think about the budget?
I think that 99.9% of people in this country don't understand it, right? Yeah. And the idea that we would we're looking to make cuts so that we can balance a budget, right? Yeah. A budget that most people just think of as a foreign thing out in Washington, D.C., right? The idea that we would cut programming that's going to help people, really help people make life better for their kids in the name of trying to balance a budget or trying to eliminate debt. It's just nonsense to me, because these same people, if you were to ask them hey, what about cutting this particular program that typically conservatives like? Yeah. They say, ooh, I don't know about that, right? Yeah. What about having some cuts to this particular part of the government that has trillions of dollars that we pour into it every single year? Ooh, I don't know about that. It's all posturing, right? At the end of the day, what they want is for rich people to remain rich in this country. One of the most alarming statistics that I've ever seen is since the late 1970s, the average pay for workers has increased about 18%, right? 18%. The average CEO pay is increased about 1,400%, right? Yeah. In this country, people who make it to the top ranks of business are paid asinine amounts, right? So much that if they were to work 3-4 years, they would never have to work again. Yeah. And meanwhile, you still got people who are saying no, we got to increase the 40-hour work week, right? No, we should not increase the minimum wage. It's craziness, man. Yeah. My party believes in giving everybody a fair shot at the American dream and not trying to just protect the folks who are already wealthy. Yeah.
Did you have to learn how to be a politician? I know you said earlier that your superpower is being authentic, right? Yeah. But did you go to a communications coach or meet with the political strategist?
Nah, I probably need to. I probably need to. They'd be like, "Nah, don't say that. Don't say that." No, I did not.
Is
look,
that a thing that people do? Do you know?
Oh
people who do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, man. When people think about politics and politicians, they think of a certain thing, right? They think of the talking, what I'm saying, the making of points like that. They think of going to the safest place possible on any issue, right? Yeah. They think of not not using cultural references that are very highly relevant in different communities, Latino communities, Black communities, whatever. It's a cut and paste kind of version of it. I never subscribed to that. I never allowed myself to get indoctrinated in that way. And I'm look, I could be doing a lot of things in life. I'm doing this because I believe in service. I believe in serving people. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it my way. Yeah. Right. And I would never like get into a position of influence or, you know, an elected office and like allow a set of consultants to like strip away my blackness or my authenticity or like my heritage or anything like that. It happens all the time. I would never allow that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's so good. So you were like the youngest county attorney. Ooh, man, I cannot talk today. You were the youngest county attorney in Harris County history. What did you learn from a leadership perspective? Because obviously being young, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So like, what have you learned about leadership from that experience of being like really young and just being in charge of the whole county's legal department?
Yeah. So I think the best way to kind of put it into context is what the job, right? Yeah. So the Harris County Attorney's Office, when I took it over, it was about 250 people. Now it's about over 300. Attorneys and staff, right? And they serve as the legal department for county government, which that don't sound like a big job. County government has over 18,000 employees, right? Yeah. So this is a huge job, right? And I won the primary, you know, like I said, be someone who had been in politics for a long time. And I woke up like the next morning like, oh, snap, I'm going to have to be the county attorney. Yeah. Oh, right? And thankfully it was just March, so I had like 8 months to kind of get my plan together. But when I took over the job, I had people who had been practicing law in the office longer than I had been alive, right? Like, so I had to very quickly like earn their trust and legitimacy. Yeah. In my last job, I had only ever managed like 4 or 5 people on these case teams, but I had never, you know, certainly never managed like 10 people, let alone running an office of 300 people. Yeah. I learned a lot about my management style. I am a delegator for sure. Like I believe in like getting trusted people, putting them through the fire to make sure that they can like execute on the task that you want to execute on. And then after that, delegating and like letting them run with it. And I like, you know, I'm sure my team's probably listening to this like, dude, come on, you be micromanaging. There are things that I micromanage on, but it's like, if it catches my attention, right, it's just like, oh, this has caught my attention, I need to stay on this. But for the most part, I believe in like getting good people, training them, learning their strengths, and then delegating and allowing them to run with it. I also believe in like setting up a solid managerial structure. So we have a fantastic team of managers. We have like 20, 25 managers in the office. 70% of them are women. And they're just like cold, man. They know the office, they know the work. So what I did was when I came into the office, you know, again, over 250 people, there have been politicians in the past who had taken over offices this size, and they had come in and just started firing people. Just out the gate. It was like, all right, y'all 40 people, gone. You know, I don't like y'all. Y'all rock with the last person too much. You got to go. Yeah. I didn't do that. I came in, I maybe fired like 3 or 4 people. And what I did for everybody else is I said, hey, if you're a manager, I want you to submit a letter of resignation from your management position, not from the office, from your management position. Because I want to open it up so that anybody in the office can apply for management. And then I went and talked to everybody and I said, look, here's my vision for the office, right? I want to provide excellent client service. I want our office to be like, you know, a firebrand office that's going to work hard for people and like take, you know, we're going to take like steps, risky steps to make sure that we're helping people. I want us to be professional at all times, all these things. If you can get on board with that vision, let's do it. Let's rock out. Yeah. If you can't get on board with that vision, then, you know, I will be happy to recommend other places to you or to like speak on your behalf if you apply for the job. And we had like 2 people retire, but outside of that, everybody was like, let's do it. Yeah. And then we, you know, went through the interview process for all the management roles, and like 85% of the managers were the same as before, but now they had a new renewed spirit, right? Because we had like the, you know, the rah-rah moment. Yeah. And then we put some other people in management who were like hidden gems, who had been in the office but just hadn't gotten the attention that they deserve. And so we had this new structure. Then I started working hard as I could to start getting them pay raises, right, from the county. And we were able to consecutively get them like 3 raises over the time. And then we just started like showing appreciation to them, man. Like, you know, doing like the lunches and like, and acknowledging people when they had major life accomplishments and all these things, showing people that like, yo, like I believe in y'all and I want y'all to come to work and be happy to work here. So I've learned a lot about who I am as a leader.
What do you think makes a good leader?
So a couple things. I think you have to view it as like servant leadership. Like you can't ever be asking people to do stuff that you would not do. Yeah. Right. If I go to an event for my office and like it ends and I'm still there and we're breaking down tables, I'm gonna help break down tables, right? If I get there early and they're setting up, I'm gonna help them set up, right? Yeah. If someone in the office loses a loved one, I call them myself. And, you know, there have been times where people have lost a young person, have lost a spouse, have lost a family member. I make that phone call myself, right? I let them know that, I'm sorry that happened to them. I'm here if they need anything, right? To me, like the best form of leadership is servant leadership, right?
Okay.
Just like understanding that like no one person is bigger than the whole, and you should never be asking someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And look, there's a whole lot of like arrogance in politics, a whole lot of arrogance, right? Where like you got people who are like abusive to their staff, who are like over demanding to their staff, who don't acknowledge their staff, who see them on the street and would look the other way. And just my upbringing and how I came up, I just would never do that. And first day I got into the office and met with the managers, I brought them all together and I said, hey, look, there aren't many things that will make me fire you because I believe that y'all want to be here. I want you to be here. How you treat your assistants, how you treat the paralegal team, how you treat the operational team, like you should be treating them like they're the most important person in this office. And if I see you treating them otherwise, that is something that will make me fire you.
Yeah, okay. You seem like a nice guy. Like, you're a normal guy. Like I could run into you at HEB and
I mean, at HEB up the street all the time, man.
I may not even know what you do, who you are. I'd be like, yo, this is a nice dude, right? You know what I mean? Which I appreciate that about you because, like you said, there are a lot of people who kind of have this arrogance about them. And I sometimes wonder, though, and I feel like this is a question that I think a lot of young men have asked is, it feels like kind of nowadays you have to either play dirty or just work like nonstop to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It kind of just feels like that sometimes. It's like, dang, like it feels like sometimes the nice people don't win. You know what I mean? Like that's the nice guy syndrome. There's something that, people have talked about. But I kind of look at politics and I go, dang, like Donald Trump won. And the way he, you know what I mean? Like, well, do people respect that? Like, you know what I mean? So
but let me tell you something, brother. Let me tell you something, brother. With the color of that skin, you ain't Donald Trump. They're going to be able to get away with that, bro. Ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that I would ever want to do that, but I just kind of wonder, like, okay, like, what is the what is the way, like, how do we get people to respond? How do we influence people? Right. And so that's something that I'm learning on the job, right? I'm kind of trying to learn, experimenting. Okay, how do I influence people? How do I influence people in a way that is like in their best interest, not just what I want them to do, right? So how have you learned, in a polarizing world where everybody kind of seems to be taking sides, how do you lead people being yourself in a way to get people on the same side, right? Even when, like, what would happen if half your department like didn't like you? You know what I mean? Like, what would you have done?
Yeah. So I'm a man of faith, man, and that's just how I conduct myself. Is like, trying to be the same person when everybody's around as I am when nobody's around, right? And just like, look, I'm a Christian. I just try to like follow my faith and just try to be a good, like, wake up every day and just be like, yo, I'm gonna be a good person. I'm gonna forgive people. I'm gonna I'm gonna let them, throw their little punch. I'm gonna dodge it and just keep it moving. I'm not gonna try to exact retribution or vengeance on people. I'm just gonna continue to be myself, take care of my family, like genuinely try to help people, like for real, try to help people, not hold grudges, forgive people, and then just let the rest shake out, and yeah, I mean, have there been opportunities I probably missed out on because I wasn't like a sharp elbowed, always looking to slice somebody's throat or something? Probably. But man, I just don't look at life like that, right? Like I look at it like, dude, God, government, family, the whole nine helped me get from, my upbringing to being the youngest person in the first Black Harris County attorney. Like, that's just in my mind. It's so wild that I'm like, yo, I have a duty to be this kind of person, right? Yeah. I have a duty not to be, like walking in HEB, like, you don't know who I am, right? Like I have a duty to try as hard as I can to remain humble, to really try to serve other people, to really try to help people. Because, I see the other side of it. I have like so many friends, family members, whatever it may be, who, I was like super tight with or close to growing up, whose lives turned out way different. And I know that like my life could have turned out that exact same way. And so, yeah, I walk around and I just don't keep score with other people, man. Like that's just really how I try to play it. Like I keep score with God on like everything he's done for me, and I just don't keep score with people. So I'm just like, you know how you meet somebody, you can just tell they pocket watching you out the gate. You meet them and they just like, ooh, there's some nice shoes. They just and they're immediately like you can sense like the envy, they're just immediately like comparing, and I just don't carry any comparison. I just don't. Like when I meet people, my first thought is always like, yo, we can both win. Like we can grow the pie. It's not a zero-sum game. Like, yo, it's 10 slices here. Oh, he's trying to get 6. So, I got to mess him up so I can get more, so I get more than 5. I just don't think like that. And honestly, man, it's not, I don't do it for anybody else. I do it for my own spirit because when you're shouldering that, when you're carrying that, man, people can see it on you. They can see it on you a mile away. Like, oh, you know, you come off as bitter, you come off as sharp elbowed, you come off as like competitive, right? And there's just nothing worse than, you know, you going bowling with your wife and like, you know, some friends, and there's somebody out there who's just like, if they lose this game, it's the end of the world for them. It's just nobody wants to be that person. So just don't, you know?
Yeah, that's a product I would buy. Like, we're talking about products and how we positioned, and I think that I would be more engaged with politics if I felt like it wasn't a zero-sum game. Yeah. Because that's what I personally at times have kind of checked out, and I'm trying to engage with it. That's part of why I wanted to really have you on, because I'm like, hey, I want to be engaged in this process. I'm not even in your district, but I was like, yo, I want to get behind somebody. I want to learn the process. I want to help in some way. Because when it feels like it's zero-sum, it's like either take it all, like, you know, winner takes all. Like, it just takes a couple times to lose that you kind of lose your confidence, right? Or you see something that didn't go for somebody else, you're like kind of like, dang, well, like, I don't want to take the risk of like losing, or I don't want to take the risk of something like I get my hopes up and the, you know what I mean? And so I think that's why a lot of people disengage from the process, because it's like, it's too overwhelming to be like, okay, like, I'm going to spend hours like researching a candidate and they're not even going to win. And I'm not going to even get, the reason I voted for them isn't going to even happen, right? Yeah. And so sometimes it's easier to just be like, I don't care. Like, I'm just like, whatever happens, I'll just deal with it, right? And I think, honestly, a lot of that is arrogance to some degree, right? The idea that, like, I don't care and somebody else will take care of it is arrogance, because like a lot of people are finding out right now, well, hey, a lot of people that didn't care and didn't show up, and now you're losing your benefits. Yeah, like, that sucks, right? That's a hard lesson to learn.
See, I don't even think it's arrogance. I think it's just privilege, right? Like, you know, like, at the end of the day, there's like a whole class of people out there who, for the most part, have this feeling of I'm gonna be good, right? Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of how I moved when I first got into practicing law before Donald Trump won the primary. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna be good, man. Like, you know, yeah, there are problems that are hurting other people, but I'll figure it out. I'm gonna be all right, right? I'm a lawyer. I'll take care of it. But then when Donald Trump won, I was like, man, this is headed in a very different direction. Yeah. But I also think that there's like a flame inside some people to where you just want to serve other people. So I talked about this when I got re-sworn in. I talked about my dad and just the impact that he had on me. My dad was not a like show you by showing you person. He was a lead by example person. He was going to go do it. He was going to do it 500 times the exact same way. You was going to see him do it. He was going to learn from that. One thing I picked up from my dad is like, if my dad was driving down the highway and somebody's like car flipped over, 100% he gonna pull over and get out. 100 times out of 100, he gonna pull over, get out, and try to help them. Yeah. And he's not even gonna say anything about it, and he's not gonna like come home and, you know, have hit it up on social media. Hey, what's up? I'm about to say this. No, that's just not how my dad was. But just like he has a true heart for service, right? Just like if he sees somebody, he gonna go help them. And that's really how I tried to conduct myself in politics, man. It's just that, like, I don't necessarily think about like how it's going to impact me. I'm thinking about how it's going to impact we, like us, like all of us. So
yeah, man, that's good. I wish more people thought like that, because that's really admirable, and I think that's the reason why I think you should be running for where you're running, and the influence that you will have when you win is because of that heart posture. And I will pray that you will continue to have that when, obviously, like, you'll have bigger demons to fight against, you know, and I always kind of just wonder, like, you know, young politicians or people who are like new to office, or like, you know, you kind of have this thing like, oh, they're going to find out when they get there. You know what I mean? And I was kind of like wonder, like, is that real? Like, you know what I mean? Or can people really actually make change? And if they can, I'm like, well, then why haven't more people made the change that we need to see, right? And I think some of it is like, hey, we just, you know, we need to keep trying, right? And we need to keep getting fighters in there. Maybe we haven't got the right people. I don't know. But,
I mean, look, man, there's no better example than the county attorney's office. When I got to the county attorney's office, nobody knew anything about this office. You would never see it in the news. Nobody ever heard of it. Yeah. And we turned it into just like a high-powered machine that just like fights for people, that advocates for people, and we've like been able to put all these wins on the board, and they're all on the website, christianmenefee.com. Yeah. And it's just like work that like good folks in the office have done, and it's because we were just creative with our thinking, right? And we just really made it like a protect people focus type of place. Like that's like the center, the center of the office is like, how can we flex our muscles to help people? And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, people probably would have thought, oh yeah, he's kind of a firebrand now, but when he gets in office, like he'll calm down. He'll be happy to go to the galas and the luncheons. And I think it's important for leaders. You have to not be turned on by that stuff, right? Because the trappings of it all, you know, it's like the galas where they call your name out, the luncheons, right? Like, you know, people, oh, I saw you on social media. Oh, I saw you on the news. I have just stayed very fervent in that. I don't care about any of that. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to help people. I'm here to help people who don't have a voice. I'm here to help people who've had their voice taken from them. I'm here to like try to transform communities, and just like not let all of that stuff get to your head.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely corrupting if it does.
Yeah, man. Last question for you. How are you leading your family through this campaign? I mean, it's incredibly demanding life. Probably going to get even more demanding, right? How do you engage with your family? Obviously, spending time with your family is one thing, but like, what's your mission for your family? Like, where are you taking your family? Is your family a part of the mission in terms of from a political standpoint, right?
Yeah. So my wife, Caitlin, she's an attorney, and then we got two little boys, Gabriel and Malcolm.
Okay.
Gabriel's 3.5 and Malcolm is 1.
Yeah.
So when you say like, how are you leading your family? It's like, oh, I'm finding out right now, live in living color.
Yeah.
No, so you know, I'm very much working hard to try to establish a foundation, gleaning a lot from like growing up in my parents' house and then other things that I've kind of picked up along the way. But you know, one thing I've noticed is that when I'm with my kids, I have to give them moments of like full on engagement. And this is a struggle for me, man, because I get like preoccupied with stuff and I try to multitask, and I find it very hard to not complete a task right away. Like when I have to put something aside and say, okay, I'm going to let this sit for 48 hours. It's painful. I'm like, dude, I got this thing I know I got to do. I got to check it off my to-do list.
Yeah.
My wife, like I've just learned so much from her, but she is just like incredibly present. I mean, you go watch a movie, she is like right there, engaged the whole movie. She's with the boys, she's right there engaged. So I've learned a lot from her, but like being present in those moments, because even if it's like an hour a day, 30 minutes a day where you're really present, it does a lot for them. The other was like making time for my wife and I to go and like enjoy ourselves, you know, like to go try to find time to watch a movie or go to dinner or whatever it may be. And that means like saying no to stuff, right? So one of the things that isn't talked about enough is that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was like so dope. She was like so cold at being a member of Congress that like a lot of people want to see the exact same thing out of Who Comes Next, right? They're like, look, Sheila Jackson Lee went to everything, right? I mean, she'll have a day where she got 16 events, right? Everything. And so, you know, they'll hit you up like, hey, I need you to come to this. I need you to come to that. And I'm like, that's in 30 minutes. I can't make that, right? So I learned early on in my elected official career that I had to like set my boundaries and like be who I am and not try to be who other people are. And so sometimes that means like, I'm not gonna be able to make it to that. I'll send somebody from the office, but I can't make it to that because, you know, I'm cooking with my wife or because, you know, like, oh, this period of time of day, I take my kid to school every day. I'm not touching any events on that day. Maybe once a month, but outside of that, no. So just trying to create those boundaries. But no, they're very much involved, man. My wife has been to like multiple events where she's spoken at, which is like, she's like a fantastic public speaker. I always joke around that like if she were to run for county attorney against me, oh, I'd have been cooked, man. I'd have been done. Super done. And then like the boys, I bring them to various things. And you know what, man? People love them. Like I'll be going to, I was talking with a member of Congress, an older black guy, and he was saying like, you know, all them polls don't matter. The only poll that matter is the little old lady poll. And that's when you go to the grocery store, what's the little old lady say? And it's been like, I've gotten multiple things. Like I got this one where this woman said, she said, baby, oh, you be jumping on Greg Abbott in them neck, right? But you know what I get the most is I sure do love them handsome boys, right? Like, you know, it's just like, they really are a superpower, man. And when I come home and I see the look in their eyes light up the whole nine, like it invigorates me. But I'm very much right now juggling the idea of like building a foundation for my family that's going to be sturdy while running for Congress. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's an interesting place to be in, and there's a whole lot of prayer that goes with it, man. A whole lot of prayer.
Absolutely. Man, well, thanks for coming on the Blueprint Podcast. I appreciate you with my follow-up questions, digging in a little bit. I appreciate that. And, man, excited to see what's next for you. And, you know, good luck on the campaign trail. I'm sure you got, like, events you're probably going to today after you leave this.
For sure.
So giving us time. And, yeah, man, any final words you want to leave before we sign off?
Yeah, man, I try to make sure that folks from every generation know that there has been many a time in this country where we've been told that only certain people belong in certain rooms, only certain people are capable of doing certain things.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned is being the youngest person, first African-American Harris County attorney who went to all public schools and then went to a private school for law school, did well, was able to excel. It's that you are only as good as you tell yourself, you convince yourself, and as you study to be. So, every single room out there, you belong to be in it. Every single fight, you deserve to win it. There's no space that you are not too good to be in. You got to affirm yourself. You got to make sure that your mental health is straight. And you have to really imbue yourself with the confidence to get to where you're trying to go. So you're good enough. You're talented enough. You're strong enough. You're thoughtful enough. Just put in the work and you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
All right.